for Life and Money Matters with the Success Guys, Mike Hill and Renee Guerra. Changing lives one day and $1 at a time.
Welcome, KBEC listeners, to Life and Money Matters. We're an hour ahead of time today, and I appreciate Mike and Renee for coming into the studio a little bit ahead of time. We've been out at the Waxahachie Lawn and Garden Expo today, and things have been kind of crazy, and at 2 o'clock we're going out to Richards Park for a baseball game. So before we do those two things, we want to get your mind in a place where we can start talking about how we can improve your life. Last week we had a special guest here, Jack Canfield, who is the author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books, and I want to say, how many different books did he write, Renee? I even forgot the number.
He has at least 35 to 40 books that he's written.
Yeah. 3.5 billion books sold worldwide. Pretty incredible. Exactly. Yeah. Well, he was kind enough to kind of fill our brains with some interesting and fantastic thoughts. And Renee, give me kind of a highlight of what you took away from last week.
What I took away last week from Jack was there's 3 main points that he talked about, and I think the listeners could really help out their situations as they're trying to make their goals, and the things that we talk about today. And one was finding accountability partner. And what that means is find someone that can help you be accountable towards your goals. In other words, you want to talk to this individual. You can talk to them 7:30 in the morning and just come up with a time that you want to talk to them and say, what are the 5 things that you want to get done on a daily basis to reach your goals? So if you want to save money, we'll talk about that since Mike's standing next to me on financials. What are your financial goals, and what are the 5 steps that you can do, or it may incorporate some of your other goals. It doesn't have to necessarily be financial, but what are the 5 steps that you want to do daily? So you call that partner. So Jim, if you're my accountability partner, I'll say, Jim, here's the things I'm going to do today. I'm going to start putting money. I'm going to put money aside for to save. I'm going to read a book today, or I'm going to whatever it is that you want to change. And we'll talk about habits in a little bit. But what are the 5 things that you do? So when you call that person on Tuesday morning, you say, hey, did you finish that? What did you get done? And did you finish all 5 of those things that you committed to? So that's finding an accountability partner.
And of those, the way he was explaining it to me was that those don't have to be, huge tasks. It could be something just as simple as saying, okay, today I'm going to save $2.85, and I'm going to simply do that by not buying, 2 soft drinks and the normal bag of chips that I buy out of a vending machine. I'm going to put that money aside. So
absolutely. It could even be working out. So a lot of people out there maybe wanted to set some goals as far as fitness. Say, hey, today I want to work out for an hour or 30 minutes or 20 minutes. We talked about the hour power, but I won't get into too much of that. But, do something that for 20 minutes of reading, 20 minutes of meditation, and 20 minutes of exercise you can do.
And the accountability person's 5 questions literally every day.
5 questions every day are basically 5 things that you commit to. So I want to make a commitment, and I'm going to tell you, Jim, here's the things I'm going to do, so you hold me accountable. And that really sets the tone on creating success habits.
Sure.
What you want to do and get you towards your goal. What do you want trying to accomplish?
Yeah. I know the one I really found kind of fascinating was the whole concept of coming up with a breakthrough idea or coming up with a breakthrough goal for the year and how you go about that.
That was the second thing that I really enjoyed about Jack talking about was a breakthrough goal. He used the analogy of a football player. If you're trying to create a goal rather than just have someone pass for 5 yards, you can have a Peyton Manning and create this big breakthrough goal and throw a 60-yard pass, and that gets you to a point of confidence. You can say, hey, I can really get there where I need to be very quickly, and then start establishing other bigger goals that you can reach. So a breakthrough goal is very important to our listeners and to myself when you're trying to create those goals.
And that's basically a year-long goal, though, too. That's not something you're going to necessarily do week after. You're going to work toward it week after week, but it's not going to be part of that daily association, I guess, that you're having with the accountability coach.
Sure. And what I can use myself as an example, breakthrough goal is to have a radio program. And without that breakthrough goal of having Mike and I do this radio show, I'd have never had Jack Canfield on the show.
Sure.
Does that make sense? So that's a breakthrough goal there, just being able to have the opportunity to ask America's #1 success coach to be on the radio show. So that was huge.
One of the things we want to get into today in a big way is the whole concept of habits. We've talked a little bit last week about personal habits. Today we really want to focus in on the financial side and what we have to do to improve our lifestyle and put money matters kind of into a habit-forming situation for us. So, Mike, I know you and I have talked about this over and over. How do we set what is the foundation for a good financial habit, and what is one of those?
Well, I appreciate y'all having me back. I'm surprised they even have a chair after being gone last week. You know, it's kind of hard shoes to fill with Jack being on the radio. He sold $3.5 billion. I wrote a foreword on a book about 4 years ago, and I think 210 copies were sold, and 200 are in my house right now. So it's kind of hard shoes to fill. But sorry, to get back to your question.
Well, to that end, though, Renee is kind of decided he's not going to renew your
is that what it is? Okay.
Your contract. But we didn't want to tell you over the air, but now that everybody knows it,
right here. Okay.
We're joking, gang.
Well, in that case, don't start a bad habit by surrounding yourself with people that kick you off the radio while you're on.
We're not going to kick you off.
No. Anyway, starting a habit, sometimes it can be something, there's habits that are bad, there's habits that are good, obviously. Starting a financial habit to start you on the road to success is the number one thing that I tell people, be it that you're saving for your kids' college, saving for your retirement, and it seems asinine in a way because it seems like it's almost easy, but it's automatic. You have to be a bill. We've gone over this how many times on the show, and just for those of you that maybe are driving around going to the game here at 2 o'clock in Waxahachie, listening to us in your car, what I mean by automatic is you are a bill. And what I would try to stress to you, if you have that high school student in your car right now, for example, and you're driving around, this is one thing I want you to stress to them. They have that job at McDonald's, or they have that job at the pool this summer. This is something my dad showed me, and this is what I mean by automatic. At 18 years old, if you just put $50 into some kind of growth account every 2 weeks, $100 a month, and I know what you may be thinking, oh, that's $100 a month. That's $25 a week. Right now, that's basically 2 trips to Starbucks with maybe a donut with it twice a week. Do without those things, you can have $100 a month. At $100 a month, starting at 18 years old, just an 8% return on your money, which the market and y'all know me, I'm not the big market pusher, but I'm just giving you a starting point. Your account would have been at $880,000 with that 8% return by the time you're 65 years old.
So saving $25 a week.
A week. Wow. Starting at 18. So my dad, I'll never forget that, showed me, he was a financial advisor as well, and I had my first job. I was waiting tables before I went off to college, and he said, okay, I'd walk in with this cash. Oh, look, Dad, I had a good night. I had $100. Great. You're going to go right over there to that ATM. This is something that strikes me that a lot of people don't think to do. You're going to take $25 out of it. You're going to put it in an envelope, the cash, and you're going to make an ATM deposit. Because it'd be 11 o'clock at night, and I had to go do it.
Wow.
And I would look up, and after being in college, working and all that for 4 years, I looked up, I had close to $8,000, $9,000 in that account. Not to sit here and go, oh, look at me. It was money that I would have spent on things for lack of a better word, what you spend it on in college.
Right.
Probably some kind of a liquid.
Adult beverage.
Right. There you go. So it was money that I didn't even miss, but that's my point. You make it automatic, especially these people that work in a cash industry. Well, it's in my pocket, I'll spend it. Go to an ATM at 2 o'clock at night and deposit it. Make it automatic. Make it to where it's a direct draft out of your checking account or a direct draft out of your paycheck, where you don't look at it. You are just as important as a mortgage or a car payment.
Bottom line, then, the habit is pay yourself first.
Absolutely.
So when you've got $5 in your pocket, ask yourself how you can take 20% of that and put it into where?
Start off small. Let's do it at 10. Okay. Let's do that. Let's say 10%. And I want to give this tidbit out to people that don't know this, that haven't attended one of my budget classes. I get this all the time. Mike, what should my house payment be? Your house payment with insurance, taxes, and mortgage, in my opinion, shouldn't be more than 25% of your net income. You with me? This is where I see people really get mixed up. Because we all like the nice cars, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And I know I'm not answering your question.
No, but you put out a key term there, and I want to make sure our listeners understand.
Here's the percentage.
He said the word net income.
Absolute net income. And then I want you to look at your net income. 15% of that should not be, no more than 15% of your net income should be going towards a car payment if you have one. And so that's why I come up with 10. If you throw in your car payment and your house payment, you're looking at 40%. The other 10% is going towards yourself. That's still 50% of your net income going for your incidentals, which you should have some left over. And where you put it, Jim, if it's something that's automatic, that is something that's good for market kind of funds. That is something good if it's slow and steady.
Define for me, though, the term net income, because, again, I think most people, when they sit there and they go, I make $20,000 a year, or I make $40,000 a year, that's your gross income, okay? That's before you ever get a paycheck back. That's before you get any kind of, you got to pay taxes and all that good stuff.
FICA and unemployment and all that. Yes, absolutely. Look at what you get on the check you bring home is your net. If you're working for a big company, if you're self-employed, you're maybe paying estimated quarterlies, et cetera, but look at the check that you're taking home as your net income. Don't look at the contract that you got that said I make $60,000 a year. Get that check and add all 4 of them up if you get weekly checks, and if those checks equal $2,000, well, guess what? 25% of that is $500. Your mortgage and all that should not be more than $500.
Sure.
Et cetera, et cetera. So your car payment shouldn't be 15% more than $2,000. I know I'm being strict here, but that's also somebody making $24,000 a year. You're probably not going to get a lot of houses with a $24,000 a year income anyway.
Okay, so the headline is pay yourself first. Make sure that is a percentage of net income, and that percentage of net income is something that you can pretty much lock into. So if it's 10%, 15%, pay yourself, do it. Put that money aside, begin to build up a savings account, and then go from there.
Absolutely.
I like that idea too. Is about paying yourself first. But like, say you get a raise every year. If you do get a raise, you would want to put that extra money into your savings too. Well, that's what I did. Anytime I got a percentage of increase, I just started taking more money and putting it into my 401k at the time, and that way I didn't have to say I was losing anything, because it's the mental piece of it too. People say, I'm going to get this extra money, now I can go out and buy a car, or buy a bigger house and so forth. But
and you can buy a car a nicer car. But now if you went from $50,000 to $100,000, just make sure your car payment isn't more than 15% of that new check.
Right.
I'm going to throw in a sidebar here. Everybody's talking about the Mega Million guys. Okay, the 3 people today
if you have
won the $374 million. Do you realize 85% of the people that ever win a major lottery deal go broke within 10 years? And again, if somebody gives you that level of money, then immediately you go out and you start thinking, okay, I can afford the $20 million home. Well, nobody thinks that the $20 million home costs you $10,800 a month, probably just for your electric bill.
Absolutely.
And the expenses that go along with that. So, the lesson learned, and you're so right, Mike, when you're giving our listeners that message, is pay yourself first and know what it is. Let's talk a little bit about debt. Okay, you and I have talked about this till we're blue in the face off the air, but let's talk to our listeners and tell them what is the right level of debt, how do you manage that, and where does that fall into the process here of a good habit.
A good habit, first of all, is if you absolutely, and I do this personally in my own business, and this is what would be advice that I would give small business employees, small business people that pay themselves, or they're not a W-2 employee, if you will. One thing that I would tell them, and yes, you're going to hear it here, is what I do in my own business is I do have a credit card. For miles only, that's how our family goes on trips every year. We pay that credit card at the end of every month in full. I'm using that for expenses. When I do my taxes, it's real nice to throw that little credit card statement that I get down every year that has all my expenses broken down. And when I talk about debt, credit card debt, as they would say, it's not so bad, it's revolving credit versus something like a car. Credit card debt is absolutely, and everybody should know this, is absolutely the worst debt that you can have. And then what you do is you pay the highest interest off first. A tip that I give people.
It's the highest cost of borrowing. Anytime you're borrowing money, just ask yourself how much it costs to borrow it.
And ladies, and people that are listening, it's April. A lot of you have high school seniors. They're going to be going off to college in 4 or 5 years. As sad as that's going to be for some of you mamas out there, please talk to these seniors about credit cards and the damage that they can make on their entire credit history at 19 years old. They are going to be hit with so many credit card offers within the first 6 months. These colleges give out the name of all incoming freshmen to these credit card companies, and they'll look up and be 21 and have a $10,000 balance. I've seen it time. I've had clients come in my office at 40 who still haven't paid off a credit card that they opened when they went to college at age 20.
Wow. 18 years later.
18 years later, because they just made the minimum payment. They probably paid in $60,000 on a $10,000 credit card just in interest.
Oh, my gosh. Crazy.
So that's the debt that you don't want to have. If you can't, I always tell people, when you go buy a if you're going to buy furniture, or if you're going to buy an item like that you just have to have, take an envelope of cash of what your budget is. If you have $1,000 or 10 $100 bills in an envelope when you go furniture shopping, guess what? Before you buy that $1,000, and I haven't been in a while, leather sofa, you got to sit there and physically count out 10 $100 bills. It makes it real. There's a reason all these furniture companies say, hey, 3 years, no interest, no payments till 2015, because they know the likelihood is that you're not going to make any payments, and that interest is going to accrue at about 21%, and you're going to look up, and that $1,000 couch is going to wind up costing you $6,000 to $7,000 in finance charges.
Wow.
But that's what makes it so easy, too, is that they really look at how we buy on emotion. Because we want to have it so bad. We buy on emotion, we buy on credit, and we buy with little understanding of what the consequences are that we're doing when we make the purchase. You know?
And by the way, and I've had to do this in my own household, it will save more arguments between you and your wife when you have $1,000 in an envelope and say, honey, I love that $1,300 couch too. This is all we have. Leave the envelope, leave your billfold at home so you're not tempted. You have that, and you can show the salesman, by the way, this is what you have to work with. This is it. And it just, because the decks of cards are stacked against us anyway as consumers. The reason they make these offers is because they're not just so nice and they want everybody to have leather couches. They have done $1 million studies to say the buying habits of people are, if you put off the payments for 2 or 3 years, they don't think about the accrued interest. They get the instant gratification of having that couch now.
You know, I found an interesting website a couple of days ago. I was looking at trying to maybe get a new van for the radio station. And I had not seen this before, but now, and I'm sure it comes back to consumer advocacy groups and this kind of stuff, they will tell you what it costs you out of pocket once you purchase a vehicle for like the next 12 to 24 months. So the next 12 months, if they tell you the car gets 22 miles to the gallon at $3.60 a gallon, this is how much it's going to cost you to operate that car for the next 12 months. And I was shocked that all of a sudden you wake up and you go, okay, yeah, I can afford maybe a $285 car payment or $300, throw a number out there. But then all of a sudden you throw on top of that, it's $660 a year to maintain this car, and that includes gas, oil, regular maintenance on it or whatever. And then over a 4-year time period, when you add all these numbers up, a $22,000 vehicle all of a sudden has a $42,000 cost of operations to you. And that's what people just don't think of. You think, okay, hey, it's neat, let's go buy a new car. Hey, honey, okay, what's the difference between 18 miles to the gallon and 24 miles to the gallon? My wife's becoming a greenie. I mean, she's really into this thing and trying to extend mileage and looking at, what's good and what's bad when it comes to vehicles. And she's going, you don't realize a 6 mile per gallon difference, what it costs you. Well, do the math sometime, and all of a sudden it's another $180 a year.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, I mean, don't even get me started on the there are some cases where leases are good for some companies, but I hear that all the time. Well, I can have this really nice car for $300 versus buying, and Mike, it's a depreciating asset, all that. Remember, your budget's 15%, but on a car, you better look at that insurance. When you get a lease versus a buy, your insurance premium is about 30% higher on a lease than it is on a buy. So it's still more money out of pocket in some cases.
Yeah. Hey, gang, we've gone over it already. We're going to take a quick break here, but come back and we'd like to hear your questions at KBEC. Give us a call at 972-923-1390. We want to focus today on successful habits. If you've had a successful habit in your life and something that's turned your life around, we'd love to hear about it. Give us a call, 972-923-1390, 972-938-1390, or on the Metro line, 972-923-1391. Sorry about that. I went brain dead for a minute. We'll be back here in a minute. You guys haven't lived until you've seen Renee dancing in studio to a little bit of Steely Dan here. Gotta love it. Welcome back to Life and Money Matters, and I'm here with Renee Guerra and Mike Hill. We're talking about how you can take a habit and turn it into a successful habit. Before we went to, right when we were going to break, we were talking about this whole concept of money and how you need to turn money into a savings mechanism. And Renee, you had something you wanted to add on that regard.
Yeah, I want to talk about Dave Ramsey. I haven't worked under his program, but there's a guy that I know through Rotary. He's worked under the Dave Ramsey program, and what he teaches is about when consumers go to a store, let's say we're talking about furniture, and you pay cash, that you're able to get a better discount rather than writing a check and using your credit card. You know, we talked about credit card and paying that extra cash or using the credit cards through the store, but Dave Ramsey teaches that if you pay with cash and you throw out $1,000 cash, or you say, well, I'll pay with cash, can you give me a better discount, you're more inclined to get a better rate than just paying by check. And I haven't done that personally, but I need to, even though I've heard that. And the other thing is that when you make a big purchase, Dave Ramsey, he says, wait 24 hours. And my wife and I will go somewhere, if we're going to make a major purchase like furniture, things of that nature, we will walk away from it and say, you know what, we'll come back in 24 hours. Of course, that salesperson will say, oh, please don't leave. We'll give you another $100 off. But we still say, is it a want or is it a need?
Sure.
So that's the other thing that the consumers and the listeners need to ask themselves, is it a want or is it a need? Because sometimes you just really don't need it.
Well, I've heard, too, that 24-hour time period kind of helps you eliminate that buyer's remorse. Where all of a sudden you go out and you go, well, yeah, we wanted the new furniture, but next week Johnny needs braces. And, we forgot 2 months down the road we had XYZ that was coming up.
There's actually some studies that have been done on that. The buyer's remorse sometimes just isn't the money that you're spending. It's, with men anyway, especially with men, it's, did we get the best deal? If I might have gone one more place or made a couple of more inquiries, can I get a better deal? It's the fear of not getting the absolute best deal or getting taken, if you will, sometimes that keeps us.
87% of people who buy new cars complain that whatever they paid for it, they still felt like they left something on the table. And that's why the car industry's had such problems. When you walk into Walmart and you buy a pair of blue jeans, you don't walk out going, oh my gosh, was that really a $9 pair of blue jeans, or is that a $7 pair of blue jeans? Exactly. But how many times have you walked out? And then the other thing, we're all guilty of this. You compare.
Oh, okay? Absolutely.
Hey, I bought my car and I got XYZ. Well, I bought my car and I got ABC. Well, yeah, and the sticker on mine, I got a 22% discount. Well, yours may have been marked up 35%. Who knows?
Jim, I'm in the financial advisor industry. I have yet to meet a client that hasn't told me that they bought Apple at $5 a share.
Exactly.
They don't tell me about the time they bought Priceline.com at 200 and it went down to 2 or something.
Exactly. Let's talk a little bit more about habits, guys. We've talked about developing these things. Tell me about how we control our spending and what we can do habit-wise on spending, Mike.
Well, and I want to kind of get on something that Renee talked about, and I kind of want to challenge him on this because I heard it, and I was kind of like, well, I really believe in the accountability system, be it your wife, be it a friend, be it a brother, be it a sister, somebody we've got to know, at least one person. I love the accountability. Let's think of programs that have worked to break bad habits, i.e. Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, Alcoholics Anonymous. Every one of them have a setup where you have an accountability. In Alcoholics Anonymous, of course, it's a sponsor. In Jenny Craig, you have a person that you can call, hey, I had an urge today. What should I be doing instead? Drink water. You have accountability buddies to break bad habits. So the plan works, the system works to have good habits. The one thing I was going to challenge Renee on that I kind of heard, and I know I've been gone, so here I come back already challenging him, is the 5 in one day.
Sure.
I know. I'm going to be honest with you. When I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't tell you 5 things that I'm going to do this week, much less in the next 24 hours of my day.
I took it one step further. I'm not taking a phone call from my best friend at 6:30 in the morning unless he's telling me that, hey, it's a medical emergency and I got to come do something for him. But we're not getting into this stuff before I even get out of bed. But the acclamation is what it's all about.
Well, and is there something, Renee, and I'm going to act like a listener here, I guess, or help me, is there something instead of maybe 5, and I'm not trying to change up the program, is there something, if you're my accountability buddy, and let's say I'm wanting to lose weight, could it get by with 1 or 2 steps and we grow to 5, or is that cheating? Should we have 5 every day, or is that a principle that we have to have, or should it even be up to 10? I don't know. I just heard 5 and I kind of shrieked because that's 5 a day. I don't even know if I can think of 5 things I want to change in one day, much less. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, I think that's a great question because, if you start looking at 10, that could put a lot of pressure on someone. So you really want to look at 5, and I learned that through Breakthrough the Success when I went through the coaching program as well. And 5 seemed to be a really good key number where I could start relating to the wins that I made on a daily basis. So for you, Mike, maybe it's contacting a client that you've been putting off. Okay, I need to call this client today. I need to have this meeting, or I need to schedule this meeting for Tuesday. If it's a Monday, you want to schedule it for Tuesday. I need to have a conversation with my employee in the office because I've been putting that off, and so I want to have that. That's my number 3 goal. The 4th goal, so you look at.
And you tell your accountability buddy?
You tell your accountability partner what you're going to do. So what I'm saying is that you can create 5 steps in the 7 areas of your life, which is your relationships, career and business, your health and fitness, your personal, whether you want to read a book, your financial area, fun time and recreation, contribution and legacy. So you can have 5 steps in each of those areas. Does that make sense, guys? So
then you have 35 steps?
No. You can have a goal in each 5 steps in one of those areas. Not all areas, but maybe pick 5 of those out of 7.
Gotcha.
See what I'm saying? You're not going to have that many.
Yeah.
So for me, it would be contacting a client. It would be key. Read a book for 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Work out for the day. Okay. So it's nothing that's
not life-changing every day.
Or towards my goal. Let's say it's for preparing for the radio station, a radio program. I'm going to spend an hour on this day preparing for the radio program. So I'll tell my accountability partner, here's what I'm going to do today. Here's what I'm going to get done. So when we have that call, we can talk on Monday. We talk on Tuesday morning. Hey, what did you get done? How'd it go? How'd it feel? And you don't want to spend 45 minutes to an hour on the phone. This is a very quick. What did you do? What did you accomplish? And then if you didn't get it done, what's the consequence? So you want to have something associated with pain. I want to make a huge contribution. I want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and walk the block. And so you don't want to get up in the morning at 4. If you don't like to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, then you want to make sure you get your goals completed, your 5 goals.
One of the things I found fascinating with Jack last week is every one of the goals that he was setting were always measurable, and they were always set to the positive. And I'll give you a prime example.
Yes.
People sit there and say, I want to lose 27 pounds. He said, no. You want to get to 165 pounds. You want to look at yourself in the mirror, and you want to take a picture of yourself at 165 pounds, and that's what you want to remember yourself at as. So you set the positive goal. The positive goal is not, to lose 27. It is to get to a specific weight during a specific period, too. I mean, I want to get to 165 pounds by April 15th, and I'm going to take a picture of myself. And then the picture is the affirmation. It is okay, here's what I looked at like at 186. Here's what I looked at 165, and you reaffirm it. And then it's always set to the positive, which, again, I think from a goal-setting standpoint, that is it's just a positive reinforcement versus reestablishing the negative. The negative is, and he went through a number of examples. Oh, I want to give up smoking. No, I want to be smoking free for 17 days. And after the 17th day, I want to make it for another 20 days. So you set it to the positive.
I.e. Alcoholics Anonymous, they give you a chip, they give you a coin when you get 6 months sober, 3 months sober, etc.
I like that. There's a friend of mine that quit smoking, and what the cool thing what he did, he reached out to a bunch of people on Facebook and said, okay, here's the day I'm quitting smoking. And so he was giving a recap week to week, started talking about how many cigarettes he smoked a day, how much it saved him. And today he's smoke free. I think it's about a year and a half. I mean, and he's talked about the thousands of dollars that he's saved. He started working out, and he quit smoking, lost a ton of weight. I mean, it looks fabulous. And it was so cool because when he would put that post on Facebook, he had so much encouragement. People were like, way to go, that's really cool, and kept encouraging him. And he was eating it up. He's like, thank you so much because I'm really struggling. Or he would post, hey, I'm having a bad day today. I really want to smoke a cigarette. And then people was like, no, you can do it. You can do it. So here he is about a year and a half later, still smoke-free, works out 3 days a week, and he took up cycling about last year. So he connected with me on cycling, and so he changed his life. He changed that habit of smoking and changed his eating habits and started working out.
How do you think he developed that habit, though? How do you think he turned the negative habit of smoking into the positive habit of living a full life and living a smoke-free life?
I think you reach a point where you just look at yourself in the mirror, and like you just mentioned, Jim, about weighing 185 pounds, and you look in the mirror and say, God, I'm so disgusted with myself. For me,
I want to be at 185.
Well, I'll just give you an example about me. In the year 2000, I weighed 216 pounds. I was 36-inch waist. I was just eating a bunch of crappy food, drinking beer and drinking wine, and a lot of soft drinks. And so a friend took a picture of me, and I saw my gut hanging out, and I was like, man, I was miserable, felt bad on the inside. Looked at myself in the mirror, got into working out, got into cycling, started changing my food, and started changing my habits. And I don't try not to eat any fried food, but for me, like you said, looking in the mirror and then saying, okay, here's where I want to be. I want to have a six-pack abs, or I want to, fit into a size 34 size jean. Well, now, 2012 from 2016, I'm a 32-inch waist. I weigh 176 pounds. And so I started developing these
Mike
habits.
thinks you look good, too, by the way.
I'm dancing in the studio.
You're on the bike than I do.
But you reach a point, and I want to emphasize this, because you reach a point where you say, look, I'm so tired of the way I'm feeling, or after I eat this meal, and you go back to eating the pizza, you go back to drinking the beer, and a lot of foods were making me sick. And so I started shying away from those foods and said, look, I've got to truly change where I'm going, where I'm headed. I don't want to be overweight, and I don't want my bones to be hurting. But one of the things that I did last Sunday was talk to a group, or spoke to a group for an hour. I was at a yoga studio, and one of the things that we were talking about is when people start changing their habits, in other words, their food, so what they're buying. One of the women was talking about how she started buying healthier foods, fruits and vegetables, and that her family started making fun of her about, hey, you need to be eating hamburgers, you need to be eating more French fries with us. Why are you eating like a rabbit? Making fun of her. And so I said, well, don't you have a support group? She goes, well, it's my family that's giving me a hard time. I said, well, I know you can't just leave your family.
You can't change the family. We're not endorsing that concept.
But again, it goes back to what we talked about, accountability partner. So if you have someone that supports you, or the guy that I just mentioned about smoking a cigarette, and he posted that, put himself out there, and all these people were supporting him. That's the way. That's what you're looking for, is finding people that support you. And I do want to throw this out, that if someone's out there, weight and finances is really big, that people want to change. And there's a great movie that I saw a couple of nights ago.
State that again, though. Weight, as in WEIGHT.
Trying to lose weight. And money is one of the two biggest things that I hear about people on goals wanting to change.
I heard Wayne finances, and I was wait a minute. Weight, as in
losing
physical weight. Okay.
Physical weight.
Yep.
And there's a great program that's free tonight. Tonight's the last night, and I encourage the listeners, if you have an opportunity, to go to www.GAIAMTV.com. It's GAIAM, www.GAIAMTV, and then watch the movie called Hungry for Change. Your health is in your hands. And what it will do is give you an idea about people that were anywhere from 300 to 400 pounds and lifetime smokers, and how they changed their life and started juicing and eating more fruits and vegetables. And actually, Jim and Mike, it's changed me on the way that I still want to look at the things that I eat, because I still eat pizza and I still drink soda. And my goal for this year was to not drink any soda. So I've failed. But I can get back on track. I won't say I failed. You can always get back on track and start getting where you need to go.
Sure.
But anyway, if anybody wants to watch that show, I encourage them to look at that tonight.
Free food. That's my favorite cost, as you know me.
It's all about free, right, Mike?
And I like what Renee's saying, because I do the same thing with budget. If whenever we have somebody comes in and wants to retire, just to reflect it with money, kind of is. I give you a budget, and I know it's going to be trimming, quote-unquote, the fat, because now when you retire, people don't realize, do you really want to be 20 years from now and not have enough money? We need to act like you need money for the next 30 years of your life. And what I kind of say is, I say, listen, give yourself a reward. I'm not telling you, let's just live like paupers and eat ramen noodles for the rest of our life. Our reward is when we save this money or we pay ourselves first, that we go on a vacation. I'll just say this out loud. I would love to be as trim and maybe ride 90 miles on a bike like Renee. Heck, 9 miles at this point. But I do give ourselves a reward. Me and the kids, all of us. Our reward is Saturday. We're going to go get pizza, or that's going to be the night we're going to get marble slab or whatever. It's not Wednesday. It's Saturday. So when the kids ask, is it Saturday? No. And when the wife, I know Saturday, and maybe that's bad. There's probably dietitians out there going, oh my gosh. But I know that there's one day a week, because I know me. I can't be Brussels sprouts and broccoli 28 days or 30 days a month. I have to have that one day where I'm like, man, just go get me a big double thick hamburger with some ice cream or something, but I know it's Saturday.
Well, and I think even most diets have come to that, or dietitians have come to that realization that, okay, 6 days on, 1 day off, 6 days on, 1 day off. The idea is that it becomes a successful habit after this 30-day time period that Jack Canfield was talking about last week. It was just so impactful that literally sit down and say, okay, I'm going to try and make this happen. And to make it happen and for it to be a habit, you've got to do it over an extended period of time and make it a 30-day time period. So, hey, gang, I really do appreciate it. We're here today with Mike Hill and Renee Guerra, and we're talking about how to establish successful habits in your life. We'd love to hear from you. Feel free to drop one of those at info@kbec.com. We'd like to hear what successful habit you've been able to establish in your life. Or anytime during our hour, you're always welcome to call us at 972-923-1390 or 972-938-1390. We'll be back here in a minute, and appreciate you listening to us today. KBEC. Welcome back, gang. We're here with Renee Guerra and Mike Hill, and we are going to talk about those wonderful things in life and money matters that kind of set you apart in life. The whole concept of putting together financial habits and personal and lifestyle habits that kind of take you to another level. Mike, you and I had talked beforehand. We've got 5 financial questions that people need to kind of look at day in and day out in their everyday life. Why don't you give us a hint as to what those are?
Well, and what I kind of tell this, Jim, these are 5 financial questions to ask yourself at any point of your investing life. If it's a starting one, if you've been investing for 30 years, or you've been planning for 30 years, or you just said, hey, Mike, I don't know where to start. And this is a saying that I've stolen from another author, but I love this one. I think it really comes into account when I'm going to talk about the 5 questions. There's 3 types of people in the world. There's those that sit back and watch it happen. There's those that go out and make it happen, and then there's those that go, what the heck just happened? Okay, that kind of goes into number 1. Number 1 is, do you have an exit strategy with your investments? Don't be one of those again in 2008 and 2009 that go, what the heck just happened? We just had a great quarter. The first quarter was great in the market. Yay, yay, yay.
New high since 1991. You got to be in. Got to buy. Got to buy. Got to buy.
But what's your exit strategy? I hear that all the time. When you buy something, and I'm very proud of Jim because he said this off air. Whenever I buy something, I know exactly where I want to sell it, at what time. I have an exit strategy. I have a selling strategy. I really I only invest in things that have a maturity. That's with me. A lot of guys, we use mutual funds, we use equities. I'm a guy that I can still be in equities, but the products that I use have a maturity date. That means on that date, you go to cash no matter if the market's going up 20% or if it's going down 20%, you have an exit strategy. That means no matter what, I have to call you and say, listen, we need to look at this because it's now in cash.
Okay, calm down.
Sorry.
Breathe deep. Tell me about a unit investment trust and why you want to invest in a unit investment trust.
Well, and again, I must preface this, when you're talking about equities, I can't give general advice to everybody, but a unit investment trust, and I appreciate you saying that. I've heard this from a couple of people. Those are what I use. A unit investment trust, very popular one out there is First Trust out of Chicago. A unit investment trust is typically, they used to be called focus portfolios. Now they're called unit investment trusts. What I mean by that is a unit investment trust will take a basket of 20 to 30 equities, in some cases up to 100. But let's say that one's called...
And equities is another word for stocks.
Excuse me. Or you can get some that even have bonds in them. But unit investment trust, for example, one that I used last year was called the Inflation Trust. It had gold, it had silver, it had oil, it had timber. Not just stocks, but it had the physical oil, gold, and timber. And what unit investment trust is like on April 1st, for example, the April 1st one will come out. They buy all those commodities on this inflation one. They buy all those things on that day, and then 18 months later, they liquidate them. So you get the price that day. So if gold's at $1,600, your 8% that's held in that trust, if you will, is priced at $1,600. And then 18 months to 2 years later, it matures no matter what. But the thing I like about unit investment trust that's different than mutual funds, mutual funds have a 5% limit. This has been making the rounds right now. Everybody wants to own Apple. Well, you could be the largest mutual fund in the world, but you cannot own more than 5% of Apple. But if you have a technology unit investment trust, There could be, you may not want it to have 20%, but he can own 20, 30. There's no limit on how much Apple they can own in there. It is a very cheap way to buy a basket of stocks and then, oh, by the way, have an exit strategy as well.
So it automatically liquidates 18 months down the road.
18 to 24 months.
So it can, like any, and this is important to understand, listeners, it can go down, okay? But it's going to sell automatically 18 months after you purchased it. So it provides you with an exit strategy.
Absolutely. Okay. I don't think they get enough play because they're lower in expenses. Because think about it. You don't have a manager.
Traditionally, what are their expenses versus a mutual fund?
At the highest I've seen is 0.5% compared to a mutual fund that's somewhere around 1.5 to 2, because a mutual fund.
And what that means again for our listeners, I'm not trying to belittle this point, is that means that if you put $100 in, okay, they're going to take 0.5% of that out, which is 50 cents, if I'm doing my math right, and that goes to managing that money. That's money that you quote-unquote lose in that fund right when you invest it. Most mutual funds average about, 1.25, I think? And again, don't hold us to this.
To be lower, but
right.
Yes. Absolutely.
So they're going to take out of $100, $1.25, and they're going to use that as the fee basis to cover their expenses, to manage those monies and manage those other things. So, okay, absolutely. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Because just know that unit investment trusts don't have a fund manager. They're not buying and selling within that fund. It's like you went in there and you bought those 20 things. Instead of, you could have done something in your account. You could have bought each stock for $8, $10 a trade and put it in your account, or you buy one symbol and you get all 20 to 25 in that sector that they deemed a good one to own in that sector. I mean, they have inflation, interest rates, hedge one. They have one that's technology. They have a cell phone one. You name it, they probably got one.
But the whole reason to buy into this is not necessarily because of, you obviously want to make a good return, but this is a strategy for those people that really don't understand having a sell strategy is just as important as having a buy strategy.
There's an old saying in real estate, it's not where you buy the real estate, it's where you sell.
Exactly. Yep. No. And that's very good to know, because I know so many people sit there and go, okay, I want to buy Apple, I got to buy Apple. Well, you want to buy Apple at $600. Well, when do you want to sell Apple? Are you happy with a 10% return on that? Are you happy with a 20% return? Are you looking for a 30% return?
Or even better, are you going to put a stop loss order in there where you sell it at a 10% loss?
Exactly. And a lot of people don't do that either when they go into the market, and that's understanding what you're looking at from an investment standpoint. All right, let's talk about some other habits and some other good financial questions you need to look at.
And I think this kind of goes over into Renee's realm, but it definitely is with me. Do you have a cash reserve? Would be question number 2 on mine. Do you have a cash reserve? In Renee's world, do you have an emotional reserve? You got to have that energy to go after your goals. That's what I would call your emotional reserve. With me, you better have a cash reserve. Before we even start investing, first thing I ask you is you do have at least 3 months, Dave Ramsey will say 6 months to a year, at least 3 months of expenses to pay for an emergency. Well, Mike, I had disability insurance. Okay, but you still have a deductible on your homeowner's policy. You still have a deductible on your car insurance. Your kids still may need braces. Whatever it may be, you may need braces, didn't you? You have to have that cash reserve. The other one is, we've talked about this, and I feel like a broken record, so I apologize, is you have a spending plan or a budget in place. And over and over and over, and you can use Quicken, you can use, there's Mint.com, it's free to set up a budget. It takes you 30, 45 minutes, but if you don't have a physical budget that's printed out, well, Mike, I know what I spend. Okay, what if something happened to you? What if something happened to both you and your wife? Is there somebody that could just come in and see what bills need to be paid and knows when you get an electric bill for $1,000, if you're in a hospital, that's wrong, that it's normally $300? No, because you don't have a budget in place for that person. Mm-hmm. Do you have a safe place for your documents? Safety deposit boxes, et cetera, et cetera. Did you know in a safety deposit box, if you have gold, silver, diamonds, and we have a national emergency, that those things, hard assets inside of a safety deposit box via the Patriot Act, can be seized by the government? I tell people all the time, I own 30 American Gold Eagle coins. Okay, where are they? Oh, they're in my safety deposit box. If you're owning them because you think the world's coming to an end and you want to have some kind of currency, you need to have them in a safe in your home. Not, and I'm getting a little off subject here, but that's my point. Have cash reserves that you can get access to 24/7.
I think it's interesting, Renee, when we try and bring the lifestyle and the money side together. The money side of it is this word called budget.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? On the lifestyle side of it, when we start talking about Jack Canfield, when we start talking about you guys as life coaches and everything else, it really comes back to that whole concept of goals. So goals equals budget in a lot of people's minds. You got to set the goal side of your life in order by being able to measure these things. And the budget's the same thing. It's the ability to measure the financial side of it. That's how you kind of marry the two together, I guess, in my thought process. You agree with that?
I do, and I think sometimes when we talked about this in one of the shows before about budget, how it could be looked at termed as negative. The word budget, you're holding me back. So if you took the word goal, what's our goal as far as our finances, and that word's a little bit easier for the listeners. Mm-hmm. What's our goal as far as saving our money or spending our money? So instead of using the word budget, use what works for you. You don't have to start minimizing anything on that. So it's true. I think the goal that you have in the financial world, and like Jack was talking about last Saturday, you do want to have financial goals, and that's so important. And again, we can talk about that week to week and every Saturday, because that is so important. It's so in the news, it's so on the TV and the newspaper about how our finances is as a company. As a country. So it's always top of mind. And then particularly the price of gas, we're looking at trying to pinch pennies. So again, it's just real important and setting a budget or a goal, whatever helps the listener.
Sure.
For sure.
And forgive me, Jim, here. I want to interject real quick because I'm as patriotic as they come. My father was a drill sergeant for 10 years. My grandfather was on the beach at Normandy. We're talking, I got veteran in my blood. I love the United States with a passion, but if you are not raising your kids, or if you are not changing the way that you spend to be more frugal in the new world that we have right now, you are setting yourself up for fail as a country and also as people. Look what happened in Spain yesterday. They cut their budget by close to $750 billion, riots in the streets. And they don't have near the budget deficit that we do. Guys, if you are not raising your kids out there, listeners, to be more frugal, to give them these little things. A book that I give to my daughters and all my nieces, there's a book called Saving is a Habit, Sammy Rabbit. It's made for first and second graders. It's a great book. It teaches kids about how this rabbit saved carrots, but save now, live frugal, create the budget. I'm not saying Roman noodles every day, but we've got to do this on an individual basis because the government is not going to take care of all that for us going forward.
Fantastic point. I think that the message there is pretty simple. The only person that can control your destiny is you. Over and over. And if that doesn't happen, then you're kind of out on your own. So, Renee?
Well, I was just going to mention one thing real quick. And as far as another book is by Robert Kiyosaki. And his book, I've read it. Tricia and I, my wife, have read it. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he actually has quite a few free seminars that are out there. So, again, it's Robert Kiyosaki. The book's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I would really look at that, and he would give you some ideas on how to help you with your finances. Of course, Mike's here, too, to help you with finances. But, it's one of those things where you take it to another level and not watch TV at night. Read something about how to help with your finances. And this is an excellent book that I would recommend that you go out and check out as well.
How do you make a habit stick? I'd like to end the show with that, just your brief comments on how we can make one of these things, this habit, part of our everyday life.
Well, Jack mentioned last week about doing something for 30 days consecutive. We mentioned on the show today is to stick with it for 30 days. If you're going to work out 3 times a week, like you were talking, we were talking during break, Jim, about setting that workout goal and how you have those endorphins and how it makes you feel. Just stick with it. Find an accountability partner and get people to help you, some support that supports you.
So,
Mike, what about the money side of it?
The money side of it is making it automatic is the number one thing. A habit is formed on the financial side when it is as clear as breathing. If you're going to put 10% aside, if you're going to put 5%, when I had to go, we started off the show, when I had to go make deposits at that ATM, I found myself after getting off a shift after about 6 months, driving automatically to the bank to make a cash deposit at the bank. I didn't even know where I was going. My car just kind of led itself. But in finances, it's easy because if you're an overspender, you can become an underspender. It just takes, like Renee says, about 30, 60 days at a time, and you get just as much enjoyment as saving money as you do spending it. Trust me, I've seen it work.
Man, that's awesome. I think both of those are very good points. Hey, to our KBEC listeners, we want to thank you for listening in today to Life and Money Matters. If you've ever got a question, thought process, or whatever, we'd love to hear from you. Make sure you send those questions to info@kbec.com. Go onto our webpage, homepage and look under the Success Guys. Feel free to write into to those guys, and when you look on the homepage, you'll see a little gray area that says Life and Money Matters on the left-hand side. Make sure to click on that. That'll pop up an email to us, and we'd be more than happy to listen to your questions or be able to answer those. And we always take call-ins, 972-923-1390. We've been kind of on the limp here the last 2 weeks. Those of you who have been listening in understand we got hit by lightning. Next week, hopefully, next Saturday, we will have all of our equipment back up and running and be in a situation where we're ready to go. And thank you for listening. We will be back with you next week at 2 o'clock, from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and I think Mike and Renee. Anything else, guys?
Go Indians. Good luck in the baseball game.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Life and Money Matters with the Success Guys on 1390 KBEC. Mike Hill is a registered representative of and securities offered through Berthel Fisher and Company Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Hill & Associates Wealth Management Advisors is independent of BFCFS. The interpretations and organizations of these ideas are the confidential thoughts of Mike Hill and do not represent the opinions of Berthel Fisher and Company Financial Services.